This is a Giant Faith 3 downhill free ride. Marzocchi drop-off front fork with 200 millimeters of travel. Metal platform plus rear coil shock, also with 200 millimeters of rear travel. Kenda tires on both sides. Pretty high-end, decent downhill rig. Or at least it was back in 2005. Back when I first started mountain biking, this was actually the first bike that when I saw it, it was like the two of us had a connection in the force. I was excited to see it. I knew that I had to have it. But it wasn't mine at first. In fact, it almost ended up being not mine at all, because I didn't expect my best friend to turn around and steal it right out from underneath me. So you know what we're gonna do. We're gonna go for a ride and I'm gonna tell you all about it. All right, so we have made it up to my favorite spot. This is Hub H up in Northwoods. I just finished climbing up here. This is one of my favorite spots, by the way. The reason why it's so favorite is because it's the hub for Dreamcatcher, which leads over to Ragnarok. Down that way is Blue Jay, and then down that way is Lucky 13, and those are probably my top favorite trails up here in Northwoods. And I climbed up here on a 20-year-old, over 20-year-old downhill mountain bike. I always got to feel a little bit frisky before I do that. But I did that today just for the sake of telling you this story. So, you know, at least leave me a like. All right, so the story behind this bike, like I said, this was the first bike that I felt a true connection in the force with, okay? So, and it was kind of stolen right out from underneath me. Oh, all right, I'm being dramatic. He didn't steal it. He bought it out from underneath me. And even that, using that term is a little bit of a stretch. So I've already told you the story about how I got into mountain biking. I've also told you the story about how I lost a good chunk of skin on the palms of my hand, all the while being facilitated by this new friend of mine, a guy by the name of Sven, who had quickly become my best friend. So after that whole wreck that cost me the skin on the palms of my hands and taught me a very valuable lesson in gloves, After that, in the days and weeks and months after that, I did land myself on a more proper mountain bike. I learned some hard lessons. What I had landed on was a Scott Voltage YZ4, which Scott makes good bikes. Don't get me wrong. That bike, though, if we're going to use the term entry-level mountain bike in a more literal sense, that bike would have been the doormat. So it didn't take me long before I started looking for something else, but a deployment to Iraq had gotten in the way. I was there for a year, and then a few other personal things happened right after that. But at least it didn't take me very long after I came back from Iraq to get back into mountain biking. I always come back around to it one way or the other. And so I was on this Scott, and we're coming up into 2005, going into 2006. And I'd been riding this Scott Voltage YZ4 for a while, and I was already looking for something better, something that would, you know, help me progress. And one particular fine afternoon, I'm walking around downtown Schweinfurt, Germany, with another friend of mine, and I happened to stumble into this bike shop that I didn't know was there. And this was a good I think it was a two-story bike shop. They had all kinds of different types of bikes in it, mountain bikes, road bikes, all kinds of bikes, you name it. But right in the middle of all these other almost forgettable looking mountain bikes or road bikes, on the second story of this shop, sat this gorgeous Giant Faith 3 downhill mountain bike. This bike seemed to, I don't know, I was immediately drawn to it. It's probably because it stood out amongst all these other different types of bikes that were surrounding it. It was almost like it had this big halo around it. And I knew right then and there, I gotta have this bike. I have got to have this bike. But how am I gonna take this bike? How am I gonna get this bike? You see, there was one major obstacle in the way of me walking out of this shop with this bike, and that was the price tag. In 2005, when this bike first released, the MSRP on it was $2,000, which, adjusting for inflation, would have been about, I want to say, $3,300 if what I found was correct. Adjusting for inflation, $3,300 in today's money. The thing is, it gets a little more complicated than that. Well, $2,000 was even a lot of money back in 2006. The bike shop, being in Germany, being in Schweinfurt, Germany, wanted €2,000. Now, I'm not going to try to adjust for inflation plus do a 20-year or plus figure in an over 20-year-old exchange rate. I'm just not going to do that. But safe to say that €2,000 was a bit significantly more money than $2,000. And I just didn't have it. But I thought to myself, you know, paydays, you know, I think payday at the time was probably in less than 5 days away from there. And I thought, you know, maybe if I just, you know, move a couple of things around, I'll be able to cough up the €2,000 to be able to buy this bike. That didn't happen. And that was honestly kind of a pipe dream anyway, but I'll go more into that here in a little bit. Something did happen, though, that I did not expect. I did not expect my best friend to see the same dang bike. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and stop this break, and we're gonna take a run down Ragnarok, and we'll come back up here and I'll continue this story. All right, so we're gonna take a run down Dreamcatcher, which is gonna connect over onto Ragnarok, on a 20-year-old downhill bike that I climbed up here on. See, when I keep making that point because this is the kind of bike, for those unfamiliar, the way this bike is intended to be utilized is to be taken to a place where there's a chairlift or some other type of shuttle service. You utilize that chairlift or a shuttle service to get to the top, and then you go, well, downhill. This type of bike, because of the geometry, because of the suspension, and a whole slew of other things like the weight, does not like to climb at all. You got to be a special kind of crazy to want to try to ride this bike around, climbing around on trails like it's a trail bike. But that's exactly what we do, because we're a special kind of crazy, and we're about to do some things that make it kind of worth it. All right, Ragnarok it is. Oh shit. These berms are so steep on this trail. They freak me out every time. Holy crap. I lost my knee pad. Back up at Hub H. Achievement unlocked. Death march complete. I'm gonna take a break. I'm in a 50-year-old body on a 20-year-old bike, climbing around up here like I'm 30 years old. Let's keep at it. Back to the story. Man, I wish I had kept the camera rolling. Right as I was settling in and getting my stuff off and getting ready to take a break, two guys rolled up, I don't know, I think that's Waterworks back there, but they rolled up, they kind of passed by. Of course, you know, everybody's friendly out here, so hey, how's it going? You know, good evening. One guy looks back at me and goes, man, that's the prettiest bike I've ever seen. I'm not even kidding. I'm like, really? It's a 20-year-old downhill, but thanks. It kind of made me feel good. Okay, so back to 2006 or late 2005. I don't know. It's right around there somewhere. So we'll just call it early 2006, I think. So anyway, back then, quick recap real quick. So bike shop, had seen this bike, immediately fell in love with it, got all Twitter-pated with it. I immediately started lying to myself about how come the next payday I was going to be able to cough up €2,000 to be able to make it mine. Key word there is lying to myself. What I did not expect was my best friend to be doing the same thing, because it might have even been that same evening. It was either that same evening or maybe even the next night. I don't know. But Sven and I, along with his wife Susie and a couple of mutual friends of ours, a couple of German policemen, had gone out to a local club and just, doing our thing, chilling, knocking back, having a couple of drinks. We were just having a couple of drinks, shooting pool, doing our thing. And shout out to the Rock Fabrique, by the way. Kind of miss that place sometimes. It was a fun spot. Anyway, between me and Sven, the conversation inevitably, as it often did, turned to mountain biking. Sven piped up and said, "Hey, I was just downtown the other day. I was at this bike shop and I found this really cool bike that I think I'm gonna get." And I was like, "Yeah? Oh yeah?" Because I didn't even know that he was I kind of knew that he was in the market for a new bike himself. See, I was on like I said, I was on a really entry-level Scott Voltage-wise E4 at the time. He himself was on an old Iron Horse, I want to say from like late 90s, early 2000s, something like that. This bike had some miles. His bike had some miles and some age on it. So it didn't surprise me that he was also in the market for a new bike at the time. So he says, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna get it." I'm like, "Yeah? Well, what kind of bike is it?" Well, actually, the first thing I asked him is, "Well, where did you see it?" And he told me it was the exact same place that I had been there, either just that day or the day prior. And I said, "Well, what kind of bike is it?" "It's a giant. It's a giant downhill." I said, "Yeah." I knew right then and there. It's like part of me, my heart just kind of sank. And outwardly, of course, I'm being a bro. I'm being a dude. That's awesome, man. That's badass. I can't wait to see it. If you get it, let me know. Inwardly, I'm going, "No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!" And of course, and like I said, my immediate reaction to this outwardly was just, I'm being a supportive friend. "Hey, that's awesome, fantastic." I think I even mentioned, "Hey, I think I saw that same bike. It's a good looking bike." And lo and behold, I think it was either the next day or maybe even as late as 2 days later, I get the text message along with a picture. It's 2006, so I think it was MMS. "I've got it," along with a picture of this bike. Once again, I'm being the friend, I'm being the bro, I'm being the dude. Badass, man, I can't wait to see it. When are we going riding? I gotta see this bike. Inwardly, I'm going, now I know I'm being dramatic a little bit on a lot of this. I'm just kind of articulating how it felt, at that particular moment, but deep down, I knew that if somebody was going to end up with this bike, the best person that it could have ended up with was Sven. Now I said that I was going to move some money around and try to finagle how I was going to cough up €2,000 at the time to be able to make this bike mine right then and there from the shop. But the sad truth is, and I knew even then that I was very financially irresponsible at the time. We're talking Michael Scott levels of financially irresponsible.
Okay, the green bar is what you spend every month on stuff you need, like a car and a house. The red bar is what you spend on non-essentials, like magazines, entertainment,
right,
things like that. This scary black bar is what you spend on things that no one ever needs.
Now, Sven, on the other hand, even though we were both service members, we were both the same rank, and we had roughly about the same amount of time in service as each other, he had his shit together a lot better than I did. So the far more reasonable part of my brain was very glad that he ended up with this bike. Because if anybody deserved that bike, it was him. But that still meant that any time that I went riding with Sven, I was on my doormat entry-level Scott Voltage YZ4. Actually, no, I take that back. I had actually ended up graduating off of that Scott and ended up on a far better, it was a hardtail XC, it's a high bike Spirit bike that actually came out, I want to say, in around the same time, 2004, 2005. Much better bike fit for my style of riding, what I was going for at the time. That still didn't mean it didn't sting a little bit anytime that Sven and I went riding together, and he would be on this Giant Faith 3 downhill bike that he rode around like it was a trail bike, like he was freaking nuts, just like we're doing today. There was even trips to bike parks that I'm going to tell you about here, probably coming up pretty soon, that, if I was either on a rental or I was on a hardtail XC bike, he was on this bike. But I think deep down we've kind of all got that conflicting energy about all of us. You know, we want something right then and there. Maybe part of our brain isn't exactly thinking through, but fortunately, with at least most of us anyway, there's this far more reasonable side that says, wait a minute, hold on, you know, maybe this happened for the best. But obviously, the bike ended up being mine, right? I mean, here we are with it. So what happened? Well, I'll continue that story just as soon as we take a run down Blue Jay. This is the part of Blue Jay I really miss my dropper post on my main bike. Death march number 3 for the evening complete. Bike's over there taking a break. And our next run, I'm not going to say our last run. I've heard that can be a superstition and can be bad. So I'm just going to say the next run towards the truck is going to be down Lucky 13. Looking forward to it. But first, I need to get a little snackage in me. And I've got a story I need to finish telling. So I'd gotten all Twitter-pated with this bike. My best friend ends up kind of beating me to it and buying it out of the shop. And ended up a little bit dejected, but I know that that he's the one that should have ended up with it in the first place because, well, I was lying to myself, but what happens next? Because obviously here we are with it. Well, about around 2007, early to mid 2007, the winds of change started blowing pretty hard in Sven's life. His wife Susie came out pregnant with their first child. Uncle Sam had told him that he had been in Germany long enough and put him on orders to Fort Carson, Colorado. Incidentally, Uncle Sam told me the same thing, but I made some choices of some questionable intelligence that kept me in Germany for a couple more years. Nothing bad, just I ended up signing a declination statement for my orders to Fort Carson, but that also had some consequences. But I digress. He had also started leaning more into four-wheel drive off-roading for a couple of different reasons. He started taking more of an interest in it, and it was less strenuous on him physically. He actually even told me at the time that he made me this offer that, hey, I've only got enough time and money for one hobby at a time. So what he ended up doing was before he left Germany for Fort Carson, he offered me this bike for $1,200. Not only that, but he knew that I was a complete maroon with money at the time, so he offered to allow me to make it in payments, like $100 a month or something like that. It was a no-brainer. So about mid-2007, I take him up on that offer, along with the couch that he offered me, along with the car that he sold me, and a couple of other things. But the bike was the most important thing, which fortunately I've still got today. I took him to the Frankfurt airport so he could head on to Colorado, and well, unfortunately I never saw him again. And the bike's been in my care ever since. Given the choice today though, if I had to give up this bike to see my friend again, I might just go ahead and give up the bike. No, I'm kidding. I'm keeping the bike. He's fine. The only thing I really do kind of lament, though, is since I've had this bike, is the way I've been able to ride it. I've been riding it very much like Sven did the vast majority of the time, which is, yeah, it's a downhill bike. I've been riding around like it's a trail bike. This bike being a downhill bike, it's, like I said earlier, its intended purpose is to take it to a place that offers some sort of shuttle service, a chairlift, trailer hitch, something. And then you bomb it down any sort of technical downhill run that you want. I haven't exactly been able to do that a whole lot. Now, there was a handful of times I was able to take it to Winterberg Bike Park back in Germany, which Sven and I used to go to all the time. There was an attempted trip to Whiteface up in Lake Placid, New York back in 2012 with another friend of mine. The trip did happen, just not to Whiteface. We ended up riding around Lake Placid because somebody didn't do the proper research and Whiteface wasn't open yet. So now I'm here in Arkansas and the bike's got some age on it. So what do I want to do with it? Well, let's go ahead and finish this run. Let's go ahead and drop down Lucky 13 and then get back to the truck, and we'll talk about what the future holds with me, between me and this bike. All right, Lucky 13 in LFR mode. Don't worry about it if you don't know what that means. Nope. I don't think I'll ever be ready for that. Not that gap. So that whole story, that was the past on this bike. What about its future? These days, actually on a more modern short travel trail bike in the form of a 2024 Giant Stance, which much better suited for the kind of riding that I do around here. Northwoods, Cedar Glades, love it. Trips to Bentonville, so on and so forth. So the unfortunate reality is this Big Blue here, she doesn't get a whole lot of, get as much trail time as I'd like to give her. Not to mention the fact that, well, as I've stated in this video a couple times, I've made it perfectly clear this bike is 20 years old. Very, very good condition. Very good condition. I've made it a point to take care of this bike as best as I can. Still 20 years old. So what I would like to do with it, regardless, and let me backtrack by reiterating that the kind of riding that this bike was intended for was to take it on a shuttle service, you know, a chairlift service like a ski lift, or you know, some other type of trailer hitch type situation, to be taken to the top of a descent and then you bomb down at whatever that descent happens to look like. This is Arkansas. Granted, there are a few places like that in the state. They're just not immediately accessible to where I can just go out whenever I want to on this bike. So what I want to do, considering I'm on a more modern ride these days, that's what you've seen me on, that's what you're going to continue to see me on for the foreseeable future. What I want to do is, with this one, there is one particular spot I would like to take it. Either there's a park in Benton, or there's another place up by Eureka Springs. I want to say it's Lake Leatherwood, I think is what its name is. They actually offer, now the one in Benton I don't know about, but Leatherwood, I think if that's what its name is, up by Eureka Springs, that place I know for a fact actually offers a shuttle service. So what I want to do is I want to take this bike on one last swan song run on an excursion like that, and just give it that one last good run the way, quote unquote, God intended, if you know what I mean. After that, clean it, maintain it, and just keep it and hold on to it, and let it enjoy its retirement years. Maybe take it out every now and then when I don't know, maybe if another nostalgia flavored video happens to get called for, we'll see. But that's kind of my plan right now. It's a trip to Eureka Springs sometime in the future. I don't exactly know when, but after that, it's going to be kind of the grandfather of my fleet of mountain bikes, and it's just going to be able to sit there and tell stories about back in her day. So that's my plan. In the immediate future, hopefully I'll be back again soon. I'm not sure what the next couple of weeks look like. It's really busy, what with the holiday season upon us. Temperatures are dropping. I was already 2 weeks behind on making this video. Skipped last Sunday because of work, weather, and illness-related issues. So I'm hoping that I can take advantage of some time off, and either Michelle and I are going to film some adventures together, or I can do another excursion like this, telling another story. So in the meantime, thank you very much for joining me. Let me know that you were here, by the way. Leave me a like, leave me a comment. Has anything like what I've said in this video ever happened to you, where there was something you really, really, really wanted, and then it got, you know, bought out from underneath you, only to circle back around to you? I know the first part of that question I know probably happens to quite a few people, but the fact that it still ends up, I don't know, quote unquote, where it's supposed to be, I think that is kind of rare, but let me know if that ever happened to you. And yeah, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you again for helping me make today's ride go beyond the last ride. We'll see you in the next one.